Hey guys, and welcome back to Storytime with Hollow. We're continuing on from the first fanfiction that we started reading last week, which was Right Where We Belong, written by Captain Fluke, or Will, who is definitely part of the friendship group of friendship, and he is a pretty goddamn good writer, as you've seen. And a lot of you reacted really well to it, and I'm really happy for that, because obviously he gets to see the amazing reaction to his fanfiction and also the feedback you gave me. So for me, mostly the main thing I need to talk about before we get into this is that I'm not going to bring anyone in. All the voices are going to be done by me, all the characters are going to be done by me, because this is the first one I've chosen to do because it's, it's Will's thing. I really like it. I wanted to show you it off with the first thing on the list that I wanted to read. But that doesn't mean the rest of the stuff, or a lot of the stuff that I'm going to read in the future, has anything to do with my group, my friends. So I need to get better as whatever this is, a story reader person, or whatever you want to call me. I need to get better at doing different voices so that it improves. And this is a good way to start because I know how these people are supposed to sound, so I can kind of lean a little bit on that. So I have to improve before, we go into a different story where there's completely different characters. So I have to do that now. So I'm not going to bring people in. Plus, if I were to do that, it would mean that they would take a lot longer to do and potentially wouldn't be each week. So, there's definitely drawbacks to that. All right, that's most likely enough on the stuff outside of the story, so let's continue onto chapter 2 of Right Where We Belong, and this chapter is entitled Songbird. The ship continued to steadily soar through the skies, passing over the wasteland and out to open territory. Its dual engines on the back thrusting it forward as various other small pulse engines dotted around the craft's shell allow it almost complete maneuverability in the hands of an accomplished pilot. Its sleek, black, jagged wings and hull mirror that of a bastardized mix of an old B-2 stealth jet and something Batman would fly. Along the side, a decorative decal, Songbird. Inside, the hull of the ship is sturdy and full of several different racks and holding bays with a varied assortment of supplies and knickknacks clogging up most of the interior. The side hatch currently opened upwards, leaving a gaping engine room. On the floor, 2 large irises that lead down to the turrets underneath, each with their own personal touches, one with cute drawings of animals and plants labelled the bunny hole, and the other a picture of a large wave with tide scrawled across, which slowly begins to open as a seat rises up. A tall, well-built, with scruffy blonde hair and stubble framing his obviously ecstatic face, a large smile beaming from ear to ear. Taking off the straps over his chest and pushing a console out from in front of him, which folds up into the roof. He gets himself off of the chair as the iris underneath him closes and walks over to a panel by the side of the open bay door. Wearing a grotty white wife beater and blue jeans with heavy boots, his muscular trunk-like arms covered in dirt and oil, adding to his imposing build, yet his body language and expression are that of an excited child. Pressing a button on the intercom, and with a thick Colorado accent, he calls out, "Ah, Fluke, that was so much fucking fun, man. We gotta do that more. Alright, bringing him up. Can't we just leave that cunt down there?" A voice behind him says. It's cute and bubbly, American tone juxtaposed with the coarse words being said. As the iris underneath her closes and seals, she pushes her console up and out in front of her and walks to the opening. Looking out over the side, her long blonde hair and bright red fringe standing out amongst the dull and dreary ship interior and blowing in the wind. Her otherwise dull, dark leather vest and trousers adorned by dozens of tiny trinkets and ornaments she is pinned with, which jingle against each other as she moves around. Using one hand to hold onto the side, she leans out over the edge, looking down at the 2 scavengers dangling below the ship. "You want to deal with him whining when we get back?" Tight ass as he flicks a switch on the panel and takes a step back. "Ugh, no, he's going to do that anyway," she responds as a large winch clicks into life and the 2 ropes begin to be slowly pulled in. "Well, I'll deal with him then. You go check on Fluke. See how long till we break," he adds while punching several different bits of info into the panel. The girl half skips over to the nearby ladder and clambers up almost instantly, passing through a hatch in the roof and disappearing out of sight. Rage and Hollow's conversation was slowly getting louder as they got closer to the ship, as Tide leant out of the open hatch door. "Look, all I'm saying is, that punch really hurt," Rage moaned. "I know! You've been saying that for the past 30 minutes, Hollow angrily responds, obviously frustrated at being kept in such a close proximity to Rage alone for so long. "Heh, more like 30 minutes, Rage adds, laughing to himself. "Oh god, Tide, please just cut me loose, I can't deal with this anymore," Hollow pleads as he looks up at the burly American, now only a few feet above their heads. "Haha, don't worry man, I got you now," he happily replies, pressing another button that brings the pair to a stop just underneath the opening. Reaching an arm out, he grabs Hollow and pulls him up onto the ship, then begins unbuckling his harness. Rage, still dangling just below the opening, shouts up, "Hey Tide, don't leave me hanging," as Hollow physically shudders. "I've changed my mind," he states to Tide. "Want to just cut him loose?" Tide chuckles before taking the last latch off of Hollow and turning back to Rage, holding out an arm and pulling him in. Taking a few moments to stretch out his legs and enjoy the feeling of solid floor, Hollow walks over to an empty space on a shelf and drops his backpack onto it. Suddenly, the girl slides back down the ladder and lands heavily, her boots making a loud thump that makes both Hollow and Rage jump. Looking over at Hollow, her eyes light up and a big grin passes across her face. "Hello, Hollow," she squeals enthusiastically before almost running over and giving him a hug, her strength taking him by surprise. "Hey, Pocket," he retiredly responds before taking a hand and lightly patting her on the head, still unsure how to react to her. As she turns her head and makes eye contact with Rage, who is still being unbuckled by Tide, her face changes to a grimace and she lets go of Hollow. Tide pulls the last bit of the harness off of Rage and heads back over to the console, pressing a few more buttons and then that pull the two ropes up onto the roof and close the large metal hatch on the side of the hull, cutting out the loud sound of the wind rushing by the ship. Pocket takes a few steps towards Rage, who is slowly getting up to his feet. "I'm surprised you're not Voto food yet," she teases. "I get your point. Next time I'll make sure I get theirs," he replies. As his joke sinks in, Pocket finds herself unable to stop a huge grin breaking over her face, which then leads to her bursting out into hysterical giggling, doubling over. Rage, happy someone has appreciated one of his jokes, also begins smiling and begins dumping his stuff off of the side. "All sealed in here, bro. Whenever you're ready," Tide says down the intercom. "Alright man, heading up now. Up for a drink when we're back?" Fluke responds as Tide nods and smiles. "You know it, bro." The ship begins to pull upwards as more power is put into the engines. As Tide heads into the engine room, Hollow goes over to the ladder and climbs into the cockpit, leaving the still smug Rage and the still in hysterics Pocket alone in their madness in the hull. Pulling himself up through the hatch on the roof, he dusts himself off before getting off of his knees, remembering to duck before hitting his head on the much lower ceiling. The walls behind him angled and thick for protection, leading round to the front where 3 chairs sat in front of a large dashboard full of buttons and levers. Similar to an airplane, 3 chairs are bolted into the ground with the central one further forward than the others. On the left, a large curved screen currently showed a map of the Earth and their location, steadily beeping. The right had a series of values and numbers rapidly flicking across several different panels. In the center, in front of a huge window at the front of the cockpit, was the driver's seat, which had panels in front. Above and to the sides, covered in countless buttons, pulleys, monitors, and levers, with 2 general central joysticks for each hand and precise control of the ship. Although the back of the chair was faced towards Hollow, he could see blonde flicks of hair over the top, and the band of a thick black headset on the pilot. Taking a few slow steps forward, Hollow manages to sit down in the chair on the left before spinning round to face the pilot, Fluke, who turned to him, smiling. "Hey man, how's it going?" Fluke asked happily, taking a hand off of a joystick and bumping fists with Hollow. His blonde hair, pushing up to one side, was framed by the heavy headset he wore and a pair of goggles on his forehead. Wearing a black t-shirt and a dirty, open denim shirt over the top with rolled-up sleeves, heavy black boots and black skinny jeans, and combined with his wild hair, he had a remarkably scruffy image that played well with his bright and happy face. "It's good, man. Found nothing, though, which sucks," Hollow responds, slightly downtrodden. "So I heard." Fluke turns back out to the window and he pushes a few buttons above his head and pulls the two joysticks further back, easing the plane up towards the thick clouds. We'll be back soon though, and you can blame Gooby then, Fluke adds, before grinning and pulling back even further. Pushing a button on the headset, he calls out in a slightly put-on pilot voice, "Attention, ladies and gents, this is your pilot speaking. Shortly we'll be breaking through the cloud line and we'll soon be at the destination." Hollow cracks a smile as he looks out at the window at the rapidly approaching clouds that cast huge shadows across the land below. We would like to thank you for choosing to fly with us and hope you enjoy your stay at Lady Vengeance, the last bastion of humanity. Letting out of the comm button, Fluke flicks two more switches and then pushes down a pedal, increasing the speed of the ship. "Man, I love this bit," he smiles as they pass into the thick clouds, Hollow's view of the outside world becoming completely obscured by the thick white smog, leaving no clear vision out. Fluke, however, is staring almost directly ahead, as if he can see through the clouds to where they are going, which Hollow muses could be a possibility, as he has probably done this so many times. "You might want to look away," Fluke states, pulling his goggles onto his eyes. Hollow follows the advice and turns his head when within moments they burst out through the top of a brilliant light fills the cavern. Taking a few moments to rub them and regain his vision, he turns back around squinting. The sun now casting light over them and the top of the white clouds that run as far as the eye can see. The only break in this serene image, floating slowly just over the tops of the cloud line, is a ship of the size of a small city that looks like a hybrid between an old pirate boat and a battleship. Huge fans and engines allow it to steadily float as tall white sails that veer off from almost every direction keep it balanced and let it turn. Its top, a huge flat platform with dozens of large turrets that seem to defy gravity with the size and thickness of their barrels, point out in most directions. The body almost shaped like a triangle with a sharp point at the front which curves smoothly and runs all the way to the back where a large stack of engines lay nestled at the rear of the ship. Although still at a distance, its sheer size leaves Hollow in a state of disbelief and awe every time he sees it, questioning the engineering that went into such a beast of a ship. Other smaller jets like Songbird can be seen flying in and out of various holes and landing pads along the ship as it teems with life. Almost all of the remnants of humanity living on its sprawling decks. "There she is," Fluke states, interrupting Hollow's trail of thought. "Home." And so ends Chapter 2 of Right Where We Belong, Songbird. A nice introduction to the ship and most of the main characters in this story. I really do hope you're enjoying the story and my storytelling. I hope that I've improved a little bit at differentiating voices so that you can tell who's talking a little bit better. Thank you very much for all your feedback. Please leave more, and I will see you guys next time. And thank you once again, Fluke, for writing this awesome story. I do hope that you write more soon. See you next time, guys.